Hello RPG and Zelda fans. In this video, I will be talking about a controversial opinion that I have. I personally believe that Breath of the Wild is a better game than Tears of the Kingdom. If you enjoy Legend of Zelda content, please be sure to check out my Tears of the Kingdom and soon to be Breath of the Wild videos that will be coming out. I have a shrine ranking, I have a dungeon ranking, etc. So let's just get right into this video because I'm sure you're here for the hot take and not just for me rambling. So I think that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are both masterpieces. Like, they really are. They're widely considered to be. They're two of the greatest games of all time objectively. Are they my favorite games? Not necessarily. I like more like very story driven character type games, or like more traditional type RPGs. Like, my favorite game is Lost Odyssey, if you even know what that is. But I really like those type of games, of course. But I think that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are both amazing games. And the popular opinion is that Tears of the Kingdom is the vastly superior game. But I just can't agree. I think it's disheartening that this game that I really love, Breath of the Wild, is just being like compared to Tears of the Kingdom and being called a tech demo by a lot of people, when yes, they share the same world, but really they are very different games in a lot of ways. And I still think Breath of the Wild is the better game. So I'm going to talk about that in today's video. Alright, starting, I'm going to have a bunch of different categories comparing each of the games separately. And first category is going to be the atmosphere of the game. So I think that Breath of the Wild definitely has a better atmosphere here. So there's like this hopeless feel. The world, like Ganon is about to just like destroy everything, right? And you need to get the Divine Beast's help to take down Ganon and all that. And really the epitome of all this is Hyrule Castle. It's covered in like the miasma of this dark malice, and there's just, it really, and the guardians are roaming around the world. Like, anytime you literally walk somewhere, there's tension. Like, you feel this world is really is hopeless. It's covered in all this gloom and peril and tension. And then you play Tears of the Kingdom. And yes, there's this atmosphere of, okay, hopeful rebuilding and stuff. But Ganon doesn't even feel, he feels so removed from this world. Nobody's really talking about Ganon. I mean, the upheaval is, I don't know, a little scary, but it's not really affecting like anyone's lives. Like, yes, there's some things that went up into the sky, and there's the chasms or whatever, but it's not affecting anyone's lives really. Like, you're not seeing them, oh my gosh, like I'm like they're just like, oh, there's islands in the sky, I guess that's a vibe. And there's no guardians, there's nothing around like the constructs are not really threatening. Like, you just shoot them with a bow from a distance, they're dead. It's just, it feels so hopeless in Breath of the Wild, which is really cool. And then in Tears of the Kingdom, the rebuilding atmosphere is still cool. It's still done well. But I just really didn't feel like exploring the world as much in Tears of the Kingdom. I just really was like, okay, I'm going to teleport to a tower, launch up to the sky, and get a bunch of stamina food and just fly to the nearest shrine, dungeon, whatever. Because I just didn't feel like exploring the world anymore. It just didn't feel interesting to me. I didn't care that much about seeing these places be rebuilt. It just wasn't that interesting to me. Is it cool? In theory, yeah, but it just didn't feel as cool as playing Breath of the Wild did. And a lot of times I kind of just felt bored of the game because there wasn't very much tension, and sometimes it just felt like there wasn't that much in the world. So, I mean, I hate to say that, but it really is how I felt. So I would give Tears of the Kingdom a 7 in atmosphere. I really think there are some highlights, like Lookout Landing being built up, that's really cool. The certain side quests, like you're teaming up with villagers to take down monsters, that's cool. And there is that atmosphere of intrigue about trying to find what happened to Zelda, but that is not nearly as cool as the world being like overtaken by guardians. So in my opinion, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom has a 7 in atmosphere, and Breath of the Wild has a 10 out of 10. So yeah, I'm going to say that. Alright, next category is going to be combat. I think it's pretty obvious if you've played these games which one I'm going to say is better. And while I'm mostly going to be singing the praises of Breath of the Wild in this video, I do like the game better. The combat in Tears of the Kingdom is astronomically better. I would say it's a 10 out of 10 for Tears of the Kingdom. I think it's one of the best not one of the best. It is the best combat in the Zelda series for sure. And it's weird because really the combat fundamentally is the exact same in both of them, other than the fuse ability, which really adds so much depth. But the fuse ability, plus there's so many more bosses, it's so much more unique, all of this stuff. And I still give Breath of the Wild a 6 out of 10 in combat because the system itself is really good. But I think Breath of the Wild has some of the worst bosses in the whole series, outside of Blight Ganon and the one dude, Monk Maz Koshia. Those two are really good boss fights. The rest of them in the game are really weak, even compared to like archaic early Zelda games. So I think that, yeah, the combat system in Breath of the Wild is really good, but the bosses are pretty trash compared to some of the other ones. I mean, they're still fine, but also like you can just use stasis and freeze them, which kind of gets rid of any strategy there is. So I think Tears of Kingdom has the best boss fights as a whole in the whole Zelda series, and Breath of the Wild is some of the worst. So that's definitely flawed there. So anyway, alright, let's move on to the music. I'm going to have to give Breath of the Wild the edge here again. I know a lot of people like Tears of Kingdom better because it has a lot of motifs from previous games. For example, the Colgera battle theme, it's playing like Dragon Roost Island in the background. That's my favorite song from the game. But still, I don't even think the Colgera battle theme comes even close to how much I love the Divine Beast themes. Inside, outside, everything to do with the Divine Beast songs. I love how for so long you're like, where in the crap is the music in this game? And it really, a lot of people hate that there isn't that much music in the game, but it really just fits with how the game is. Sure, it's not like the joyous exploration, but in Breath of the Wild especially, it's really driving in the atmosphere of hopelessness. There's not really any happy music, there's just sounds, and it's really cool. I like how it uses music a lot. So Breath of the Wild, a 10. Tears of Kingdom is an 8. Like, I think it's really good. I think the soundtrack is still very solid, but Breath of the Wild has my favorite soundtrack in the series. I know that's probably controversial. I mean, Wind Waker's very good, obviously, and stuff like that, but I really do think I love Breath of the Wild's music so much, and Tears of the Kingdom really isn't that great. Also, we don't have Cass's theme, and that is a huge downside. So without the Divine Beast themes and Cass's theme, I really can't say Tears of the Kingdom even compares in the music category. Alright, next criteria on this list is going to be the towers, which someone might be like, okay, that is a weird criteria to be judging these games off of, but they are a big part of the game, like they truly are. So I'm going to give towers a 6 for Tears of Kingdom and Breath of the Wild an 8, and here's why. So Tears of Kingdom, I do like that the towers can shoot you up in the sky, and you can go to the sky, and you can glide around, all that stuff. That is great. But first of all, that really makes it so easy to traverse the world that I never actually want to walk on foot. I never want to ride a horse. And it really just kind of gets rid of the, okay, well, this is actually a world to explore, but I could just conveniently shoot up into the sky and glide around. You know what I'm saying? So that is, I mean, that's a me problem, but really, that's not the only problem here. I think that the design of the Breath of the Wild towers looks infinitely cooler, and I just think that in general about Breath of the Wild. I think that the Sheikah stuff looks way cooler than the Zonai stuff. Like, the shrines look like potatoes with green juice coming out of them. I don't know. I think they're weird. I think the designs in Tears of Kingdom are not for me, honestly. Whereas Breath of the Wild, I really liked all the designs. So the towers look really cool. And people were like praising that, oh, the towers, you actually have something to do now. Like, there is a way to, oh, there's different criteria for how you open up the tower. And the only one that I actually thought was good in Tears of Kingdom was one where you had to build something so you could stop the rain, and then you could get the thorns burnt. And that was really cool. I really liked that one. But I really just thought that the different scenarios in Breath of the Wild were way more interesting. Like, I don't care about talking to this dude and ascending up into this and, oh, boom, there's the tower. Like, I didn't care about that. I don't care about shooting the pedestal out of a Arracuda's grasp. Like, I don't know. I mean, they're cool in concept, but I thought it was really cool that every tower had this theme of, okay, we have to climb it, but every single one is different. Like, okay, there's a bunch of guardians surrounding this one. There's mud surrounding this one. There's an enemy fortress surrounding this one. Whereas in Tears of the Kingdom, I thought it was more monotonous. So I just thought the tower design was way better in Breath of the Wild, and I liked that it was more interesting to activate, in my opinion. And also, the biggest problem with Tears of the Kingdom is it doesn't tell you the names of the regions. If someone is only going to play Tears of the Kingdom, which a lot of people do these days because it's quote-unquote the better, bigger game, they're not going to know what any of the regions are called. So when you're talking about the game to someone, you'll be like, oh yeah, the Hebrew region. And they're going to be like, what is the Hebrew region? And I mean, if you really zoom in on the map, you can, I think, see it. But like, I really like it doesn't tell you where the Ridgelands is. It doesn't tell you where the Lake region is. It doesn't tell you where the Tabantha region versus the Hebrew region is. It doesn't tell you, like, a lot of these Wastelands versus Gerudo. Like, I loved how simple the towers were named in Breath of the Wild. And in Tears of the Kingdom, it was just so annoying that after 2 years, I haven't played this game. I haven't played Breath of the Wild for 2 years. I come back to it, and I don't remember what the regions are called. And I just want to know, but the game isn't really telling me. So that was annoying. That was the worst part about the towers for me. So overall, I do like the towers in Tears of the Kingdom. I give them a 6, but Breath of the Wild, I give an 8. So, yep. Alright, let's move on to the characters. The characters are really a great part of these two games, and basically any Zelda game. But I will have to give the edge to Breath of the Wild again. The champions were way better than the sages, in my opinion. And also, I mean, in terms of gameplay, they were too. But obviously, that's not what I'm saying here. But Yunobo, I hated the dude. I mean, like, the story, he was controlled and stuff, but I thought he was so annoying. Like, I don't know. Like, his design annoyed me. What he was talking, I don't know. I just did not like Yunobo. I don't like trashing. I'm not trashing on the game. I really am not. But, I mean, I don't really like Gorons in general, so that's kind of a me problem. But Daruk was, like, calm, wise, and everything I don't like about Gorons was not Daruk. I really did like Daruk. He's like the one Goron I actually like. So that's probably a me problem, but I don't know. I just don't like the design of Gorons. I think they're so weird. Anyway. And then Tulin is cute, but he's also annoying. Like, the fact that he just is so stubborn and you have to track him down, it's just annoying. And I don't know. I don't think he... I don't know. Tulin's kind of annoying. And then Rivali has, like, a lot of fun sarcasm to him. He's, like, mature, but he also is messing with Link. Like, they seem like they were friends. And that's one thing that really was cool about the champions. Like, these were, like, Link's people. These were his people. He was always teamed up with them back in the past. And, like, they really had story with him. Whereas the sages are just, like, their ancestors. Like, it's fine. It's cool and all. But really, I don't give a crap about these guys. Like, I mean... Really, I'm being honest, I didn't really care about the Tears of Kingdom characters that much. I mean, other than Sidon, obviously. Sidon is awesome, but he was in Breath of the Wild, and I liked his role in Breath of the Wild plenty. And also Mipha was in Breath of the Wild, and she is one of my favorite characters in the Zelda series. She was really compelling, a good friend to Link, a nice romantic interest and stuff. And I do really like Sidon in Tears of Kingdom too. Like, Sidon and Link are, like, said to be, like, they're, like, best friends, right? And you can really feel that in both the games. But we've seen Sidon already in Breath of the Wild, and I still think he was better characterized there. So really, I don't know. I just thought, and then also, we're missing one. Riju and Urbosa. Riju was well designed. She looks cool. She's a good character and stuff. But she's just discount Urbosa. Like, Urbosa was hardcore, she was cool, she was snarky and all that, and Riju was kind of just younger or Urbosa without the edge. And I don't know. Just, it wasn't that interesting to me. And then you compare the old man. I feel like the old man had a lot of heart, he was relatable, and yes, it was annoying that he wouldn't just give you the freaking paraglider, but that added charm to him. Whereas Rauru, yeah, he looks cool. Actually, he kind of looks stupid, but he kind of looks cool, right? But I had no interest in his character. Like, I would watch all these these backstory scenes. And, okay, I did like Sonia, or whatever her name was. She was cool. But Rauru was just so boring to me. I don't know, I'm sorry for anyone who loves these characters, but really... I had no connection to Rauru. The old man, he had a cool plot twist and all this stuff. And the old man, like, he's there from the beginning. He's interesting and all this stuff. And Raru's just boring. He wouldn't he was barely, I don't know. I did not like Rauru. I have friends who think Rauru is so much better than the old man, and I guess I can see it. I mean, he's cool designed. I mean, the Zonai are fine, but really the old man was just a much more interesting character in my opinion. And then the last character that I want to talk about before I get to the villains, obviously, I will say that I do like Mineru from Tears of Kingdom. She was like a plot twist type character. She was cool. She wasn't annoying like most of the other sages were. And yeah, she was cool. Like, she's in a robot's body, but she was actually a Zonai and all that. That was really cool. I thought Mineru was awesome. And Mineru and Ganondorf, which I'll talk about in a second, are the only reason I didn't give the characters like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. Because like, I really do not like the sages. Like, they really are boring compared to some of the other previous sages in like different Zelda games and stuff. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't with these Tears of Kingdom sages. I don't want to say that, but it's true. Anyway, but Ganondorf is better than Calamity Ganon. Calamity Ganon isn't a person. He's an amalgamation of Blight Ganons and of chaos and of death. I can't with those type of villains. Like Final Fantasy IX's Necron, like, I don't want to be fighting the epitome of death. I mean, I guess it's cool in some games. Like, I guess if you're fighting the god of death or something, if it has a personality, cool. If death has a personality, that's actually really cool. Like in, I don't know, Percy Jackson or something. But I am not wanting to fight a villain that has absolutely no characterization. So I will say, Tears of Kingdom was infinitely better in that regard. Ganondorf was really cool. But still, I don't think he was as intriguing as Ocarina of Time's Ganondorf. I didn't think he was as intriguing as really any of the Ganondorfs in the series, to be honest. I didn't really care about Ganondorf in this game. I thought he was cool in the opening scenes. I thought he looked cool. His fights were fun, but it's not like he had a presence throughout the game. I didn't feel like, oh, I need to go kill Ganondorf. The problem is, a big part of why I don't like the characters is just story. Since it is not linear, it just doesn't give us time to really develop these characters. So, to a point, both the games have pretty bad characters. So I'm going to give the characters in Tears of Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, I'm going to give the Tears of Kingdom characters a 6 and the Breath of the Wild characters an 8. Just because really Ganondorf is pretty good and I do not hate Mineru that much. So a 6 and an 8. So, yeah. And I would give them lower scores, but 1, I don't want to piss off people, and 2, I think they're objectively better than what I just said. So, sorry if I offended anyone, but I really don't hate these guys that much. I just like to be dramatic. Alright, let's move on to the next criteria. Alright, now let's talk about by far the best part of both these games, the world. This is why these games are amazing. Like, I'm sorry, but the story, compared to other Zelda games, not really there. The dungeons, not too there. The abilities are really cool, I'll say that. But, I mean, truly, these aren't the greatest games ever without the big world, without how cool these worlds are. And I don't need to say a lot about these worlds, because we all know how amazing they are, and I think that I don't have that much to say, but I will say I do like the surface in Breath of the Wild better, just because I really do enjoy the atmosphere better. I don't really care too much for the atmosphere in Tears of Kingdom, and I've just by default, we've already seen this world before. Like, I mean, that's fine. Like, I am not one of the people who's like, oh my gosh, this game is copy-pasted. Why is Tears of Kingdom even a game? No, obviously not. I love this game. But I just think that overall, the whole idea of the world in Breath of the Wild, like, it was new. Like, this is the first time we've seen this world. It was really big. It was really cool. And the atmosphere. I mean, if we're objectively saying, like, if the games came out on the same day, I would still like the surface world in Breath of the Wild better because of the atmosphere. And because the Guardians. Because of all this. Because the shrines look cooler. Because I think the shrines were in way more inventive places. Other than like 90% of them just being at the bottom of a well. Like in Tears of Kingdom. However, if that were the case, I would give Breath of the Wild probably a 9 or 10 out of 10. Probably a 10 out of 10, obviously. Because these games are amazing. I would give Breath of the Wild a 10 out of 10. And Tears of Kingdom an 8. because I don't love the atmosphere too much. But there's a reason I've separated the world and atmosphere categories, and that's because the sky and the depths add a lot to the world. I still don't think they add as much as some people say, because honestly, I love the depths and the sky, but you can tell there's a lot of copy-pasted elements. I'm not saying it's lazy, but there are, like, a lot of the sky archipelagos are the same thing, but rotated in a different way, and you bring a sky crystal there, and it's a little monotonous, I will admit, but that doesn't mean it wasn't awesome. It wasn't amazing the first time. That doesn't mean that there aren't really cool locations in the depths, like the Fire Temple and the Spirit Temple. That doesn't mean that the Lightcast Island is bad. That doesn't mean that the Starview Island is bad. That doesn't mean that the Great Sky Island or the Thunderhead Isles are bad. Like, I love all this. I give the world a easy 10 out of 10 in Tears of Kingdom. But that doesn't mean it's perfect. And if it were for the sky and the depths being much more interesting locales and stuff, I could maybe think that Tears of Kingdom was the better game. But really, I just think that Breath of the Wild has a lot going for it that Tears of Kingdom doesn't. And I still haven't really got to my big points about that yet. I'm saving that for save the best for last, right? But I do think that Breath of the Wild has a 9 in this category and Tears of Kingdom has a 10, just because there are literally I forgot. And the caves. Just the cave systems are probably my favorite new part. The depths are really cool. The sky's really cool. But I love just how many just caves just popped up. Like, that was really fun. I think the caves really could have been their own 4th layer if they wanted to add it to the map. That'd probably be a bit tedious to do. But really, I like the caves a lot too and exploring all those. So the world was just a lot bigger in Tears of Kingdom, I will admit. That didn't always mean better. Like, the rewards were a little less interesting for me. The different shrines were in worse places in Tears of Kingdom and stuff. I'm not saying Tears of Kingdom is perfect, but it's pretty dang near perfect. Like, it's a really good world. And that's why these games are revered as some of the best games ever created, because their worlds are just so amazing. Alright, let's move on to arguably the worst part about these two games, and that's going to have to be the story for me. I'm honestly only giving these stories a 4 out of 10 and a 5 out of 10 to not offend people. Like, I mean, to some people these mean a lot, and I know a lot of people like these stories. Personally, like, objectively, I'd say they're a 4 and a 5. Personally, I'd say they're a 2 and a 3. Like, I do not like these stories because I like the idea of stories being, like, non-linear and all this stuff. It just doesn't work here. I don't think it works. You might not watch the memories in the right order, and at that point, this game is so big, it might be like 8 hours before you watch the next memory. And you've already forgotten, but at the same time, you don't want to re-watch it because, well, they're not really that interesting, in my opinion, at least. I just don't really like the story in these games. I'm going to be honest, they're pretty bad. I'll take any... I mean, obviously they're better than, say, Zelda 1 or Zelda 4 Swords or something like that. But Majora's Mask, Link's Awakening, Link Between Worlds, Link to the Past, all these games have better stories, in my opinion. And I just don't love this, like, non-linear story structure and format in these games. Not in general, I will say. Like, for example, Tales of Symphonia or a game like that, you can visit these different locales and get these different summon spirits in a different order, but the way the game is structured, it works. It's a seamless flow. Like, the story, you still get all the bits of the story and it all works. But there's just way too much downtime between the different elements in the game, and that just, the story structure absolutely doesn't work for me. It works for other people. Like, my girlfriend, I know she likes the story in this game. I mean, I know she understands that I don't, and she gets why, but at the same time, she likes it. Like, I understand if people like these stories. I just can't really get behind this format. I'm trying to think of other games that let you... Oh, in like Final Fantasy VI, where there's the 3 different scenarios, let's say, you can get the different snippets of story. You can pick Sabin's story first, you can pick, let's see, Terra's story, or you can pick whoever the other one is. Oh, Locke's story. You can pick any of those in any order, but it still ends up becoming this strong narrative, and they come together or whatever, or the World of Ruin, where you get all these different character stories at different times, depending on how you want to do it, but you eventually, you remember all this stuff because it keeps being driven down, and they're compelling. The story of Tears of the Kingdom is not very compelling. The big point is that, oh my gosh, Ganon is here, and oh my gosh, Zelda's being controlled by him. But the first time I saw Zelda, I knew instantly that she was being controlled by Ganon. It was so blatantly obvious that all intrigue flew out the window. The only reason I give it a higher score than Breath of the Wild, I give it a 5 objectively, is because the reveal of Mineru is pretty cool. I will admit that. But the story is not good. I'm sorry, but it really is not that good. I'm sorry to the people who made it and the people who like this, but it just objectively is not a very well thought out story. It's very predictable, and there's not much to it. There's not a lot of depth. And the different memories, yes, they develop the characters. The characters are good. The characters are great, but the overarching plot, there's just nothing here. It's just go beat up Ganon in the castle in both games. And I don't think either of them do very much outside of that, except revealing different stuff about only the characters. There's not any really cool events going down here. And honestly, I'm just going to say it. These stories are pretty terrible. Like, I think Final Fantasy 1 had just as good of a story as these games. And this came out 40 years later, or 35 or whatever. So, this is why I can't get around these games that much, because this is why they're not like top 10 favorite games of all time for me. Because story is why I play RPGs. Story is why I love playing these different games. I mean, this channel is called RPG Ranked for a reason. I love RPGs, I love stories, and that's why I just can't get behind these games as much. So yeah, alright, so that was like all Debbie Downer crap right there. I'm sorry about offending everyone and their grandmothers who love Zelda stories, but it's not for me. This was not really great. But now I'm going to go back to the 3 other categories on this list that I think are phenomenal parts about these 2 games. And I just wanted to get the story out of the way because I want to talk about good things and throw the depression in the middle and then go back and end on a high note, because these games are very good. So let's talk about the dungeons next. This is my most controversial opinion on the list. I'm telling you right now, I think the dungeons in Breath of the Wild are better than in Tears of the Kingdom. Why? Everyone's like, oh my gosh, we've returned to traditional dungeons. But really, it's just reskinned divine beasts without what made the divine beasts awesome, that they were something new, something compelling. Basically, we're just getting divine beasts reskinned as elemental temples. But the elemental temples in other games, 1, have already happened, 2 were better. So why are the divine beasts worse? And I think that, well, people are like, well, they're copy-pasted, but like we're tilting the whole beast with like Valmetto. With Naboris, we are like moving this whole big centerpiece in the stomach. That was really interesting. Ruda, we're having water puzzles with the trunk, which I thought was super cool. I will admit Rudania was kind of stupid. It's just like a one little tilt depending on how it was on the mountain. And I think Rudania is the worst dungeon out of all of them in both games combined. But really, or maybe the Water Temple in Tears of the Kingdom. But either way, like, yes, I will say the only thing that I like better about Tears of the Kingdom dungeons are the bosses are a lot better. But I mean, I still like Blight Ganon better than any of the bosses in Tears of the Kingdom dungeons, other than Colgera. I really do like Blight Ganon, for example. But the other ones, yes, they're copy-pasted. But they have plot relevance, and that adds a lot. Yes, they are copy-pasted. Yes, there are 4 copies of Ganon, but that's a big part of the plot. The Divine Beasts are part of the plot. They turn their lasers into Hyrule Castle, and it feels like, oh my gosh, I actually did something. Whereas doing solving the disturbances in Tears of the Kingdom is just to get sages and just to kill the boss so you don't have to kill it in a boss gauntlet. But it's not like this game doesn't, like, you can have food. Like, you don't need these sage abilities because, let's be honest, they're not very good. And 2 Lins is amazing, but that's not really going to help you against Calamity Ganon. I mean, not Calamity Ganon, Ganondorf, sorry. I really think that the plot relevance made the Divine Beast so much better. Entering the Divine Beast was also so epic. The music was amazing. I thought the Divine Beasts were awesome. Do I want the Divine Beasts to ever come back to another Zelda game? Of course not. That makes no sense. And I love that they were just their own idea that's in Breath of the Wild. They were really unique. And Tears of the Kingdom just did not have that same energy to me. It was just a lot of, well, it was a downgrade to me. And I just didn't like it that much because it's just reskinned Divine Beasts. And I do like the dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom, I will admit. But all of that does not compare to my last point. The Hyrule Castles in these two games are the same Hyrule Castle, yet they couldn't feel more different. The Hyrule Castle in Tears of the Kingdom is the worst Hyrule Castle in the series to me. Not gonna lie, it's just the worst. And why? Because it takes all the cool atmosphere, all the cool elements that were in Breath of the Wild's Hyrule Castle, and just takes them away. I mean, yes, you go into the depths, and you're in that underground Hyrule Castle, which I guess is cool. And yes, that area is very cool. But nothing about it is... I mean, I didn't want it to be the same to Breath of the Wild, but, like, we're in Hyrule Castle again. Like, we're having the same final dungeon twice in a row. It's the same, but worse in Tears of the Kingdom, which was so odd. Like, there's not the Lionel rooms, you're not finding cool weapons, you're just finding rusty broadswords. Like, you're not finding hidden unique shrines anywhere. Like, it just wasn't cool. Like, I really thought Hyrule Castle was the worst in Tears of the Kingdom. On the contrary, I thought Breath of the Wild's Hyrule Castle was the best in the series. It's not a linear dungeon, you can explore whatever the heck you want, and you can do all this stuff, and it was just stripped away in Tears of the Kingdom for the most part. Yes, you could find some pretty interesting pieces of armor, albeit not useful pieces of armor, in Tears of the Kingdom's Hyrule Castle. But what's the point of that for me when Breath of the Wild had a way better Hyrule Castle? Also, Breath of the Wild has the final trial, which is a very fun and unique dungeon. It's a hidden dungeon and all that. And yes, the Spirit Temple is also cool. So I'm not going to say that that's different. But again, the Spirit Temple, these temples have been in so many different Zelda games. Like all the way down to Ocarina of Time. Like, it's been around for a long time, these different just blank temple. And I'm not going to lie, it's disappointing that we get that again. And people want traditional dungeons, but it's just reskin Divine Beasts. And I'm not going to keep saying that because, anyway, as a whole, again, it's the atmosphere and the story part of it for me. Like, the Divine Beasts have relevance to the story. The atmosphere of Hyrule Castle is so much better in Breath of the Wild. And for me, those two things just made the dungeon so much better. I honestly give the Divine Beasts a 9 out of 10. I think they are some of the coolest ideas for dungeons that we could be in Zelda. I don't think they're the most well-designed dungeons, but getting into them, like how they look, all the stuff is so cool. And they have good plot relevance. Whereas Tears of the Kingdom, sure, they are a bit more like traditional dungeons in how their puzzles are solved, but that doesn't make them better in my eyes. And I think that Tears of the Kingdom has 6 out of 10 dungeons. Some of the weakest in the series, in my opinion. Alright, let's move on to the abilities. Things that are very good about both of these games. And I'm going to go... Again, I'm being controversial. This whole video is controversial, obviously. I just felt like I wanted to be... I know people who like Breath of the Wild better, and they go out and tell someone and they get made fun of. Like at school. I mean, I am in high school, so I will admit, of course people are going to make fun of each other. They make fun of each other if they believe anything. But here, like, one of my friends was telling me they like Breath of the Wild better too. It's not just me. But if they tell anyone that, they're like, bro, you're dumb. So I wanted to make this video for those people out there who are like, okay, well, I do like Breath of the Wild better. Don't hate me for it anyway. We're at that point in the world where people will hate each other over video games, and I think that's stupid. If you like Tears of the Kingdom better, I don't care. They're both phenomenal games. Anyway, let's talk about the abilities. I'm going to be controversial again. I think the abilities in both these games are fantastic, but I just like Stasis and the Master Cycle way too much. Stasis, honestly, my favorite ability in any Zelda game. Master Cycle 0, my second favorite ability in any Zelda game. Stasis stops time. That's awesome. And rewinding time is cooler in theory, but stasis, when you're hitting things and things go flying because of the the potential energy being stored and changing into kinetic energy, that was so cool. And it allowed for some crazy, traversal of the map and stuff that was unconventional but very cool. And, you could go on top of a boulder, and you could fly on boulders, you could fly on minecarts. You would think of completely out-of-the-box ways to make different transportation systems. Whereas in Tears of Kingdom, it's just building. And I'm really not I don't like building. The Ultra Hand ability, is it better? Does it let you do more stuff than any of the Breath of the Wild abilities do? Of course, it's objectively by far the most interesting ability in both these games. Do I like it though? Not really. I think it's a little clunky. I don't really like the Ultra Hand ability that much. I felt like it was utilized too much for me, and I don't like building. I don't like Minecraft. I don't like these type of games very much. So having so many shrines focused on just using Ultra Hand to build different contraptions, I didn't like it very much. And none of the contraptions felt like the Master Cycle either. There's something about riding the Master Cycle around Hyrule that is so cool. Does it not make that much sense to some people? Yeah, they're it takes me out of the game, I want to ride the horse. But this is Link's Divine Beast. Again, plot relevance. I know, I'm kind of stupid here compared, maybe I just don't like having fun. But seriously, I just don't love the Ultra Hand ability that much. It's just not that interesting to me. Is it awesome? Is it insane from a gameplay perspective that they were able to make such a crazy ability and not have it glitch every 2 seconds? It's phenomenal. It's insane. I love that for other people who love building. I love that everyone is able to make these cool contraptions, have so much fun, but it just, I don't know. I didn't like it very much. I had more fun stopping time, hitting things, sending things flying. I had more fun riding this motorcycle around Hyrule and all that stuff. I just had more fun with those abilities. Now, I will admit, also remote bombs made so you had an unlimited amount of bombs, which you could eventually get. You can blow stuff up with reduced lightning powers, or you can blow stuff up with Yunobo's rock ability or whatever. That's not a big deal, but it was nice, and I really like the different elements that having a circle bomb and a square bomb. You wouldn't think that would be a big deal, but it changed so much depending on the situation. And I really love that, and Magnesis was cool. I do like Ultra Hand better than Magnesis. It's just better. Really, it's just better. But sometimes I like being more limited, because sometimes I feel like I can just cheese everything. I can Ultra Hand something, put it up to a ledge, put it back down, jump on top of it, and rewind time, and I've just beaten a shrine. I just completely cheated. And it's something I can do. I mean, some people like that it's that open way of solving puzzles, but I really don't like that much. I am very much a older Zelda person. And I'm 16 years old. This is not really a nostalgia thing. I just like thinking about something until I've solved it, instead of, oh wow, I can do whatever the heck I want. And I'm just not really a sandbox game type person, so I really did like the Breath of the Wild abilities better. I had more fun with them. Also, Cryonis was awesome. It had a lot of cool puzzles that there were for it. I really liked that. It was really cool. I mean, I loved Recall. I loved Fuse. I was okay about Ultra Hand. And Ascend was very useful. I mean, it was kind of boring, but it was useful. And, I mean, I really like the Tears of Kingdom abilities, but Breath of the Wild just has 2 abilities that are some of my favorite things in gaming, honestly. So, Tears of Kingdom still gets a 9. They're objectively fantastic abilities. But I'm going to give Breath of the Wild a 10. I just loved the ability lineup in Breath of the Wild, and I'm not going to lie about that. Also, the amiibos are way better. Not that I would ever use an amiibo, but they're better in Breath of the Wild. I'm just going to say that for anyone who wanted me to talk about those. All right, let's move on to the reason I even made this video in the first place, which you're probably like, wow, Brighton Nelson has already gone on the biggest rant ever. But I have one more thing to talk about, and that is the shrine designs. And that is fundamentally rooted in two things. One, the shrine quests in Tears of Kingdom are just boring. And two, Ultra Hand. I don't really like Ultra Hand that much. I don't love building things so much. And when 99% of the... okay, that's a bit much. When so many shrines are just a blank device and then you have to use Ultra Hand and do something with it, with Zonai devices, it got kind of boring to me. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do, and each shrine took me about 10 seconds. There was no puzzle. It was just, okay, let's use Ultra Hand. And occasionally there'd be, oh my gosh, there's this cool ascend thing where I ascend through the roof in the Shining in Darkness shrine or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was a cool little puzzle or whatever. But I just don't really get that much out of Ultra Hand, and therefore most of the shrines in Tears of Kingdom are boring to me. And I didn't really like that. So yeah, it was either just you build things with the Ultra Hand, or it was introducing a Zonai device. That was the main fundamental gameplay loop for Tears of Kingdom shrines. On top of that, there were the Proving Grounds shrines, which I really, really, really did like. But when you compare that to Trial of the Sword and Eventide Island, those are just so much more iconic, so much more difficult. Trial of the Sword completely outclasses anything that's in any of these Proving Ground shrines. Proving Ground shrines take like 10 seconds. They're not very hard. They're not challenging. Whereas Trial of the Sword pushes you to your limits. How well do you know the combat system? How well do you know all this? And that was really cool. I'm not going to say that Breath of the Wild had better combat because of Trial of the Sword, or the one-hit obliterator or any of that. And that might change. Like, maybe there'll be some awesome shrines if they have DLC in Tears of Kingdom. But right now, I just like the shrines in Breath of the Wild so much better. And the design, like I was saying earlier. Really, the new shrines in Tears of Kingdom look like potatoes with green juice swirling around it. Like mutagen from the Ninja Turtles. Whereas shrines in Breath of the Wild look like these enigmatic things from a past era. I just think I think the shrines look really cool too. And all of that really doesn't mean that much. None of that's really that consequential. Like, okay, from an objective standpoint, I don't like Ultra Hand, so okay, that's just not for me. These are well-designed shrines still. But this is the reason I made this video. I needed to talk about how much better the shrine quests were in Breath of the Wild. In Tears of Kingdom, I literally counted 75% of the, about 75%, it was in the 70s or 80s somewhere, of the shrine quest are taking a sky crystal from point A to point B. Not interesting. This is a fetch quest. I'd rather have just had a blessing shrine that had no substance and I've gotten a chest. Because it's just boring. Like, some of them I had to literally spend rupees to get. Some of them I just had to fight a boss that I two-shotted. Because taluses are so easy with Fuse. Like, I was just kind of bored with the shrines in Tears of Kingdom. I just felt like Breath of the Wild, every shrine was inspired. In Tears of Kingdom, I feel like they were just trying to hit the deadline Nintendo had for them. Like, I don't think that the shrines are objectively bad like the puzzles. I just don't like Ultra Hand. But the shrine quests are objectively terrible. They're not really... there's no substance to them. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, when you got one of these orbs, you always had some really cool way of getting them. One of them, you had to kill 3 different brothers, like 3 different Hinoxes, and bring them all to the ground where they were born, or whatever it was. The other one, you have to snap a photo for this lady, and then you can distract her to get the orb. In another one, you had to ride a deer onto a pedestal, and you opened up the shrine. In another one, you have to shoot an arrow into the sun to get it. Like, all of these were so cool. It made me fall in love with the shrines in Breath of the Wild. And I absolutely loved all these shrine quests. And then I get to Tears of Kingdom, and almost all of them are boring. And the ones that aren't just green crystal ones are blatantly obvious. It was like, throw something into a circle. No, that wasn't fun. It took 2 seconds. Or the white bird one, which was so convoluted and confusing. I spent 3 hours looking for a white bird, but it was actually a patch of snow. Which once I realized it, I was just utterly disappointed. Because it just wasn't interesting. The only ones that I could say are like actually hold up to the Breath of the Wild ones are the Keys of Ice, which you have to melt the ice cubes, which is really cool, albeit obvious. And the ones where you had to paint you had to use an apparatus to cast a shadow onto this mural, and that would open the shrine. That one was awesome. But otherwise, these green crystals were just boring. And I don't like Ultra Hand. So all of this, the shrine quests are bad. And then one more thing, there's no cast in Tears of the Kingdom. There's nobody to give you these shrine quests to make them feel alive, full of character. And it just wasn't that fun. Or there's no, nothing that even compares to say, let's not step on the flowers. That was so funny. There are so many shrines in Breath of the Wild that I could just name to you. I could tell you each puzzle from the shrine. I've only played both these games once, mind you. And I finished Tears of the Kingdom 3 months ago. And I finished Breath of the Wild in 2016. I was 12. I didn't care about how am I supposed to remember 12-year-old me remember all these shrines? It's because they made them very well designed, very memorable, and all this stuff. I will not forget these shrines sneaking around Kakariko Village to try to follow this lady and get this orb. I won't forget all these different things. I won't forget the crazy shrine that it was a major test of strength that I one-shotted with the one-hit obliterator, and then all of a sudden it's another test of strength shrine. These shrines are awesome. The only reason I'm not giving the shrines a 10 out of 10 in Breath of the Wild is because I will say a lot of them are test of strength shrines, which was objectively a lazy choice. However, in my opinion, I love fighting, so I'm not complaining, but I will give Breath of the Wild a 9 because of that reason. It just isn't objectively a good design choice to have 20 shrines have the exact same point to them. But even still, every single fight was different in some way. There were ones that had pillars, there were ones with water, there were ones with different blocks that you would magnesis up as pillars, and they all had different weapons. Yes, they all were named the same thing, but they weren't the same. They did get a little repetitive. That's why I'm getting the Breath of the Wild shrines only a 9. But compared to Tears of the Kingdom, we don't have casts. We don't have good shrine quests. We have a lot of sky crystals, and every shrine is basically focused on Ultra Hand. And I just didn't really have fun with the Tears of the Kingdom shrines. I'm giving them a 6 for the grace of the people who really do like Ultra Hand. Because I think that, I'm going to agree. I'm going to say, people like Ultra Hand, and I'm just going to say, okay, I get that. But there are people on the internet who are saying Tears of the Kingdom has by far the better shrine designs, in my opinion. And I just don't see that many people talking about how the shrine quests are just not nearly as inspired in this game. Every single shrine quest was inspired in some way in Breath of the Wild. And any of the ones, most of them were either, the green crystals, those 2 I mentioned that were actually good, or things you already do in Breath of the Wild. I don't know. It just made me get bored of doing shrines eventually. And there's a point where I was just wow, Tears of the Kingdom is making me bored. I never had that sense of, okay, I don't want to go to a shrine. I always loved discovering shrines in Breath of the Wild. I didn't feel that about Tears of the Kingdom. I just got bored of them. And that was sad to me because I love shrines. I love the idea of these mini dungeons. I wish they were bigger. I do like traditional Zelda dungeons better, but I am okay if shrines are the continuing dungeon design of these games, of these Breath of the Wild type games, if they are like Breath of the Wild. Not Tears of the Kingdom, where it just feels like they're trying to pump out as many shrines as possible. And a lot of them were very well designed, but just not nearly as consistent as Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild shrines a 9, and Tears of the Kingdom shrines a 6, objectively probably, from just thinking about it. But in my opinion, I probably ended up, by the end of the game, I would probably give them a 4. I would rather not go to a shrine than go to a shrine, and that just made me very sad. So overall, there are a lot of things that Tears of the Kingdom does better. The combat, the world, and all that stuff. And honestly, it's not as big of a difference as I was trying to say, because the world is just so good in Tears of the Kingdom. A 10 out of 10 is a big difference between the 9 out of 10 world. of Breath of the Wild for me, because the world is really what determines how good these games are. And because of that, I'm not exactly going to be super mad that Tears of the Kingdom wasn't as inspired as Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild is what changed the Zelda formula, not Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that Tears of the Kingdom is an 85% game for me, and Breath of the Wild is an 86% game. Like, it's not a big difference to me, but in terms of like reviewing it. But I really do think that Breath of the Wild holds up to Tears of the Kingdom. They are very distinct games. They are both worth playing. Breath of the Wild is not a tech demo for Tears of the Kingdom. It is a very distinct game that was very good, that I loved. And honestly, it did so many things much better than Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom did a lot of things better. Is Ultra Hand way better than the abilities in Breath of the Wild objectively? Of course it is. It lets you build anything, but it's just not for me. And honestly, my point of this video is more of everyone can have their own opinions, and that Breath of the Wild isn't just a tech demo. People spent so much time on that game. They built it from the ground up. Like, Breath of the Wild is a fantastic game. And some people are just like, why did I even like Breath of the Wild? Tears of the Kingdom is just way better. And really, I just think it's silly. And I think it's silly that people are saying Breath of the Wild isn't good anymore. People are saying that, oh my gosh, you're dumb if you think Breath of the Wild is better. And I just really made this video to highlight we all have our own opinions. And I just don't like that we live in a world where people aren't allowed to share their opinions without backlash. So I just wanted to share my opinion today. Brutal, honest truth about everything. About Zelda. This is not important. This is not like some world-changing, like, my opinion matters. My opinion does not matter. If you like Tears of the Kingdom better, you're not a worse person for it, obviously. But if you like Breath of the Wild better, you're not either. And I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell you my favorite Zelda game is the Minish Cap. I'm that guy who likes Minish Cap better than any other Zelda game. My second favorite, Link Between Worlds. Do I like Ocarina of Time the best? No. Do I like Tears of the Kingdom best? No. Do I like the original Legend of Zelda better than Ocarina of Time? I do. I'm that wacky kid who has wacky opinions about Zelda. But that's okay. And I want other people to know that that's okay. Because we don't have to be saying the objective truth and praising games that we don't really enjoy that much. Did I think Tears of the Kingdom got boring for me? Heck yeah. Did I think Breath of the Wild got boring for me? Not really. And I think that being able to share opinions with other people in this way is something that we should be able to do. And that's why I made this video today. Thank you all for watching this obscene rant that means absolutely nothing in the grand calculus of the universe. But if you got something out of this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more in the future. If you liked this, I can do more comparisons, like, I don't know, Majora's Mask is better than Ocarina of Time, or vice versa, or Zelda 2 is better than Zelda 1, or any of my other wacky opinions I have, because I have a lot of them. They're kind of stupid. Or about any RPG franchise, or any game. Like, let's see, do I have a crazy Mario opinion? Of course I do. I like Color Splash better than the original Paper Mario. Am I an idiot? Maybe. Objectively, am I an idiot? Probably. But am I okay with that? Yeah, because that's just my opinion. And in the grand scheme of things, nobody's opinion changes someone else's opinion, because that's not how human minds work. Thank you all for watching this video. If you want more raw, stupid rants like this, please let me know down in the comments, because this is my favorite thing ever, to just be honest with myself and the internet. I don't know if anyone watched this, but if you did, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope there's at least one person out there who agrees that Breath of the Wild is better. Because you know what? I mean, I'm sure there is, but, you know, it's nice to have at least someone who shares your opinion. Thank you guys all for watching. Have a fantastic day. I did not mean to offend anyone here. If I did, I'm sorry. You're still a great person. Have a great day, everyone. Peace out, Zelda fans and RPG fans.